So first of all, what we take to be reality is in fact just a representation, a map, a picture, a diagram, but not the complex living whole. One that is in fact made up of isolated things moreover that are known, familiar, decontextualized, fixed, predetermined, and made up of bits, fragments, disembodied, having no meaning or coherence until we give it to them, where all is abstract, generic in nature, infinitely reproducible and quantifiable, and therefore inanimate and mechanical. And the future is a fantasy which would be only better if we could get more of it under our control. Whereas in the right hemisphere, one sees that nothing is ever entirely certain or predictable, that all things are ultimately interconnected, that there is nothing that is ever fixed, but in fact that, as Heraclitus said, everything flows, that what exists are wholes, the parts are an artifact of the left hemisphere's way of looking at it, that meaning is implicit, that the world of uniqueness is real, not just categories that can be quantified, but having different qualities, and an essentially animate world. And here there's a future that is a product of realism, not denial. We've got one hemisphere that sees just a theory of the world. It's very simple and pleasing, and it's only going to get better. And the right hemisphere is seeing the whole embodied, impassioned business of vitality and seeing that it is not necessarily leading somewhere we want to go. And there's a relationship between the brain and the structure of the cosmos. That's something I'm going to try and explain now. There is a sort of hierarchy of the right and left. Let me say this first of all. I think I've explained that the right hemisphere is more veridical, that it is a better transmitter of, producer of reality, and the left hemisphere has certain limited uses. What it sees is not wrong. It's not that it's got no use. It's just that its use is very limited and its knowledge is limited. The problem only becomes when it thinks it knows more and we pay attention to that very narrow way of thinking as though it gives us the full picture, which it doesn't. So there's a hierarchy there. And I think this is also demonstrable in physics. I'll explain that. And I would say that when we're talking about how we would like to make a world, it's a fantasy for us to imagine that we can just make up a world without understanding both our own brains and the cosmos. And so this is where we need to start from in all our exercises of imagination. In whatever exists, there is a replication of this thing about the brain, which is that the left hemisphere tends to divide in order to understand, but then cannot put it together again. But the right hemisphere tends to see the whole and see the whole picture, of which what the left hemisphere has been looking at is just a part. Now, we need both these kinds of attention, but one of them is more important than the other, the capacity to see the whole. And there are these forces for division and forces for union throughout the physical cosmos as well as the metaphysical one. And what we need is the unity of the forces of division and union, not the division of the forces of division and union. Do you understand? I sometimes say, we don't want either or both and. We need both either or and both and. I hope that's entirely clear. So this idea of the unity of difference and unity is the first asymmetry. The cosmos is founded on asymmetry.